Hi, most agencies or firms spend hours writing proposals for all the leads that come through their pipeline. What if I told you that you could have a proposal within 60 seconds customized to each and every lead that comes through your pipeline? Let's look at a demo. All right, let's look at a demo on how everything works. Right, so first things first, what we do have is a Google Sheets trigger, which would be a sheet where you would have all the answers from your intake form or ones that you filled in yourself. Let's say you could also have a A99 form as a trigger. You could also create your own form. Personally, I use Tally, and then I created a webhook and then automated everything to come into this Google Sheet where I have all my answers. And then the first thing I'll do is once a row is added, in other words, when someone has filled in an intake sheet, the goal is for it to take all the variables and all the columns from that sheet. Did it? Okay, now so it did. Okay, cool. So now since I only have one, what's going to happen now is we now want the proposal to fill in the variables within our template right here, right? So in our template, you're going to want everything to, it's preferable to do it like this so that when you do ask the AI to make the dynamic data, it should be able to easily identify what needs to be placed inside what, right? So you can see there's everything there, so that everything is dynamic. And then we'd have our prompt here, which would be a simple prompt asking it to, as a AI proposal copywriter, specializing in the solution that you want to sell. And then over here, we'd be putting the placeholders to generate outputs for each with these instructions. So this is where I give instructions for everything, right? So that I always know and know what to expect it to give me, so it doesn't just hallucinate or anything of that kind, right? And then underneath here, this is where we say return your output exactly in the following JSON format. This is where it's going to give me everything, all the JSON within the proposal template. Like right here, you'd see thank you message and then a few rules for it to follow. Now, if we execute this step, while that executes, I wanted to show you this is where we give it all the data from the sheet, right? So using the system instructions provided, generate proposal copy using the following client intake form data. This is where you could then add all the form data. Right, now that after this node has been put in, we see that all the data is in. We have the proposal title, the overview welcoming, the problem, objective, solution, all the goals, everything is aligned with what we need. That's when we come into this node where we then copy this template and create a copy of that file so that we keep this template for future use but create another copy of that template. And then the output would then give us the ID of the new file with the name of the new file. And then we have the replace text presentation where it would then replace all the text within the new copy from the dynamic variables to the dynamic content that we generated previously. As you can see here, we have our presentation ID. So now if we decide, let's say we want to take a look at the new proposal, the presentation ID, by the way, would be this in the URL, this right here, right? So what we're looking for right now is to copy this. So let's copy this. And then what we want to do is we want to take this, remove that, input this, and press enter. And then we'd be able to see the new presentation right here. As you can see, it's filled in everything that we needed it to fill in. Everything is right, everything is proper, everything looks good, everything feels good. Yeah. And then another important step is to make sure that we set the permissions of the file so that everyone with the link can access it and read the file. Otherwise, when you do share the file to your clients or prospects, they're gonna need access. And sometimes sharing a file that nobody does have access to is more of a liability because it seems more unprofessional in their case. So now that we know it's the type anyone role reader, so everyone can now read, and then you can then send it as an email to the prospect, as we can see here, to the email subject, and then the and then we send them. You can review the proposal here, and then book a kickoff. Now, let's say let's try to make it right. So it's a simple and easy thing to make. Like I said, you're gonna need a Google Sheets trigger, or you can just fill in with a N8N form, and then just on a new N8N form event, and then just create your form right here. That's also another way to do it, but I prefer to have a more branded approach. And then take that form data, input a simple system prompt. You are a helpful, intelligent writing assistant for an AI automation agency. You are an expert. You must generate outputs for all placeholders below in a single JSON object for seamless parsing and insertion, and then placeholders, and then we just make sure we explain everything, such as in the overview welcome, I said A23 sentence welcome message that thanks the client for considering Monetify, which is the agency I work with, and then the problem, which is for clear bullet point style problems, objective, proposed solution, your goals, and everything. If you want to more, you can give it more and more information if you want to improve the message more and more. It's totally dependent on how much you want to give it. The more information you give it, the more accurate it will be in the creation of your proposals. And then from there, what we're going to need is to copy the template. So if I go back here to the templates, so right now you're just going to need a Google Drive node. I'm not going to show you how to create a credential. There's documentation for it inside N8N. It's good enough. It's perfect. Trust me, you won't get lost. Just going to need a copy file, and then we're going to need to designate the file we want to copy. So right now, this is just copy the file ID right here from after the D to before the edit. You want to that's the file ID, and then say by ID over the file, and then just copy the file. So if I just need to show you real quick, just from here all the way to here, copy that, and then just paste that in right there. Quite simple. And then the file name, just take this and then put that in there so that the new file it creates has the proposal name inside of it that was dynamically created already. And then simply, we're just gonna need a Google Slides node. Again, there's documentation to create the credential. I don't want to leak anything, so I'm not gonna take the chance. And then, simple enough, you're gonna see here, and then simple enough, you're gonna see here that the operation is replace text, which and it then makes it completely easy to do. Just paste in the new file's ID. You're gonna get it from the previous node. It's gonna be an output. And then this is why we have our slide in this JSON format, because we want to make sure that everything it has its own word, so it's easy to replace and easy to dynamically create. So say here, search for proposal title. Make sure it's fixed, not an expression, right? Even if it is an expression, it's not going to work because it's undefined. So just make sure it is fixed, and then replace with the content you have here, which would be for the proposal title, easy, there's name from the previous node. Overview welcome, this is where we're going to come in, take this node and put it here. Take this data from this node and then add it into the replace with text, and then you're going to just do that over and over and over again for each and every dynamic variable that you have. You're going to do that again and again and again. And then after that, what we're going to need to make sure is so that every time you know you're sending it, that the people you're sending it to have the access to the file, so that when someone opens the file, they don't get that annoying, you need to have access to view this file from the admin or something like that. We just have the share file node right here where you put in the presentation ID, and then you just set the role for everyone to read it, type anyone, and then simply enough, that's going to make sure that every time this file is open, anyone with the link can read it, has access to it. So you make sure that every receiver does not get that annoying "you need access" message. And then simply enough, the last node would be to send a email to the client. The email would then be sourced from the Google Sheets node or from your Anidin form node, where you then just have to put it in and then have the subject and then have the email. Simple enough. The text is simple. Hi, name, thank you for filling in the intake form, etc., etc. We put together a clear, actionable plan outlining how we can help you streamline operations. And then here's the proposal copy. So obviously the copy of this email will depend on whether you send the proposal before the kickoff call or after the kickoff call. This is completely editable. This is completely easy to make, easy to change up. So after that, you just paste in you just take this. The link would just be from here all the way to edits. And then you just have to take the file ID and then paste it there so that we make sure that the file is dynamic so that everyone does receive the correct file. And then after that, you can add your kickoff link here, or that's completely optional whether or not you did this before or afterwards. And yeah, that should be all. It's a completely simple automation to make, but it is high ROI. It doesn't take you more than 30 minutes if you know what you're doing. I'll leave a link to the free template below where you can get it for free. And just for the sake of it, this is simple enough to also create on other softwares like PandaDoc, where you would follow the same flow where you then make dynamic variables in the proposal, have AI fill it in, but there's no node for PandaDoc in Anidin, as we can see here. So instead, you're gonna need to use an HTTP request with their API, which shouldn't take that long and shouldn't be that complicated since it's basically the same thing, but it will look a little iffy. So if you do need me to make a full video specifically on PandaDog, write it down in the comments below. I'll surely look into it. And then, yeah, that'll be it for today. See you next time.